Hi, my name is Sammy, and today we're going to figure out if large format sensors actually give you better image quality. In some ways, theoretically speaking, yes they do, and it's not hard to prove it for yourself. If you take the right focus and the right focal length, the image from a GFX sensor is essentially the same as 4 APS-C images stitched together. Under the right circumstances, if you look at a photo at 4x magnification on an APS-C image, it will look the same as a photo at 1x magnification on a GFX image. And you can see this in the real world if you look at the data, right? If you go on DP Review and you look at their test scene and you blow it up to 100% and you take a comparison of the GFX 100 sensor with any APS-C camera, you can see that the GFX 100 clearly far and away outresolves more detail. But that's not what people are asking. What people want to know is they want to know, will I actually observe a difference in the real world when I look at my photos? They want to know if I bid down my image to a 2 megapixel cell phone screen and I upload it to Instagram super compressed and people are just like viewing it on their tiny phones, are people actually going to notice a meaningful difference between my medium format images and my like APS-C or my cell phone images? This is the thing that turns out to be subjective, and this is the thing where different reviewers tend to have different opinions based on whether they feel they observe a difference between the two images. But this is something that we can actually measure. So let's go through this systematically and see if we can figure it out. Ultimately, photography is an engineering pipeline, and engineering pipelines are driven by bottlenecks. If you have the best sensor in the world, but you put bad glass in front of it, you're going to get a blurry image no matter how good your sensor is, because the sensor is seeing the blurry image through the lens as input. In the same way, if you take the best, sharpest, most beautiful image in the world and you display it on a 100 pixel by 100 pixel computer screen, if you take a tack sharp, high resolution, beautiful image and you display it on a 100 pixel by 100 pixel screen, it doesn't matter how good the image is, it's still going to look blurry, it's still going to look pixelated because the bottleneck in the whole system is the display medium. So it doesn't matter how good your image is to begin with, once you pass it through a bad display medium, then it all goes to crap anyway. All right, so when we ask, is the camera that we have good enough? What we're really asking is the image that we captured with our camera going to completely outresolve our display medium? So basically, is it so good that if it was any better, it wouldn't matter? And so there's two things that we really want to talk about here. There's sharpness and there's kind of tonal quality and tonal range. And I think that for images taken in good light and displayed on any normal laptop or phone screen, for sharpness, the answer is a resounding yes. So if you take a photo on a good camera in reasonably good light and you display it on any cell phone screen, it's going to be so sharp that it completely outresolves the resolution of the screen. The other factor though, color depth, is a little bit more complicated. So most modern cameras, they record 14-bit or even 16-bit color depth, and most displays only display 8-bit color depth. So in theory, the amount of data that's recorded by a camera, or the amount of colors that are recorded by a modern camera is significantly more than the amount of colors that are actually displayed on a screen. But that isn't quite the whole story. And it isn't quite the whole story because even though your ultra-modern full-frame camera can technically record files that are 14-bit files, it doesn't mean that it necessarily has 14 bits of resolving power. So just because it writes 14 bits of data doesn't mean that those 14 bits of data are necessarily accurate. So, and this is something that you will really see immediately as soon as you try to push the brightness or the shadows in any of your files. So when you push the shadows, you're amplifying all of the colors, and you can see from the noise in the files that when you push the colors that you get out of it aren't necessarily accurate. What's interesting here is I haven't seen any really good measurements of kind of color depth accuracy in the same way as, for example, DxOMark has these perceptual megapixel metrics. And I haven't seen quite the same kind of quality metrics on measuring the bit depth of an image and not just the dynamic range, but also the accuracy of all of the colors within that range. Like, I don't really know kind of precisely how much better a really good full frame camera is over a cell phone in terms of just like color and tonal quality. But kind of from my personal experience, this is one of these things that's really a lot better if you get a really high-end camera. Like the colors and the tones and the depth of those colors really just look a lot better on a lot of the full frame cameras that I've used. Right, so up until this point though, we've been assuming a lot of things, right? We've been assuming that you're taking a photo in really good lighting under good conditions and you're not editing your photos too much. And as soon as you take any of those things away, then using a really big sensor starts to make a much bigger difference. So low light is the first obvious one. And again, this is something that you can measure really easily. And you can see, you know, if you have light that's bad enough, or, you know, you're in a situation that's dark enough and you need to shoot a fast shutter speed, you can see even on like a small cell phone screen that, you know, at similar ISOs, cameras like the GFX are going to just like out-resolve even in terms of sharpness on a phone screen, like a full frame camera. And you kind of notice the same thing in terms of tonality. I think it's even a little bit more pronounced. Like as soon as you go to push some of the files, like you might notice a small difference in the tonality before you try to play around with the files, but as soon as you try to move the sliders around, then you really start to notice these differences in tonality in a much stronger way. And part of the reason for that is, you know, when you take an area and you boost the exposure of the area, or you kind of move things around in an area, like all of the tonality that's measured is going to be amplified. So for example, like you might not be able to tell the difference between like the darkest shade of black and the second darkest shade of black. But as soon as you go and like boost those areas and like, you know, increase the brightness of those areas, then you can really start, you're like kind of like multiplying any differences in tonality, and you can really start to see the difference in what colors the camera actually measured. So basically, like as soon as you start pushing the files around, like a lot of the differences in tonality will become even more pronounced. So a lot of smaller cameras, you know, have a lot of really neat tricks up their sleeves to try to make them look like they're a much bigger sensor. So a lot of cell phone cameras, for example, will turn on HDR automatically and take a million different images and kind of combine them through like crazy algorithms and crazy software. But one of the things that I definitely notice when taking a photo on like a full frame camera versus taking it on a cell phone is that when you take a photo on a cell phone, the image has already been processed, right? It's already been sharpened, it's already been, you know, oversaturated, etc. And so if you try to push those files even further, then it's not going to work because they've already kind of like pushed them the maximum amount that they can be pushed given the sensor input that they have. Whereas if you take a image that's taken on a much higher end like full frame camera, like it might look similar straight out of the camera, but the image from the full frame camera hasn't been messed with as much, and so there's a lot more like room to play with if you want to say, you know, increase the saturation or increase the sharpening or kind of do stuff to it without getting too much noise, because like since it hasn't already been processed, there's kind of a lot more processing room to play with. All right, so to come back to the original question, do these larger format, like medium format sensors really make a difference in the quality of your image, like when you actually like view it in like any normal medium, like a phone screen or a laptop screen? And in my opinion, the answer is a slight yes, because you're going to get better tones and better colors if you use a larger sensor. And if you super hardcore edit your files and you really push the colors a lot and you really, super crop into your images and really like mess with your images after you capture them, then the answer is a super resounding yes. So it's kind of like slightly better if you don't really edit your files too much, but maybe not that noticeable. And then very noticeable as soon as you go to really like edit your image and to really like push things around in your photo. The last thing that I want to do is I want to really emphasize that this is strongly dependent on your skill as a photographer. So if you are using a super extra ultra powerful medium format camera and you misfocus or you don't get the shot, then it's going to look really bad regardless of what camera you capture it on. And especially with medium format, like a lot of medium format cameras are harder to use and it's harder to handle to really, actually capture the perfect moment kind of correctly in the camera. And, if you don't capture the image correctly, then it really doesn't matter that you took it on a medium format camera. So like, if you can only get focus on like a D850 and you jump up to a GFX 100, but it's too slow and you can't get focus on it, then your images are going to look much, much worse. So a medium format camera is going to be better, but it's only going to be better if, you actually like capture the image. Like it's only going to be better if you actually take it with you, if you nail focus, if your camera isn't super shaky. Like it's only going to be better if you really have like a perfect technique and really capture the exact same image. And I think that last part is really important, and it's something that I think a lot of people forget because like most people are going to take worst photos on a medium format camera just because they're gonna misfocus. And so it's like you're not getting a benefit from using a medium format camera unless everything else about the way that you capture an image is absolutely perfect. And so I think that's really important to keep in mind. And so kind of like as a result, my kind of personal thoughts and my kind of recommendation for most people is like, even though, like it sounds really cool to get medium format and it sounds like really awesome to like, say that you got like the ultimate like super image quality out of your image. For most people, like you're going to get worse photos if you move up to medium format because you're not going to have the right lenses with you because like it's harder to buy like good large zoom range lenses on medium format. Like it's harder to nail focus, it's harder to take good pictures. And so for most people, even though I think medium format does offer like a real legitimate boost in image quality, you're not going to see that boost in image quality in a lot of your photos because you're not going to take perfect photos if you decide to move to a medium format camera. Or most people are not going to take perfect photos if they move up to a medium format system. So yeah, definitely keep that in mind. I definitely thought about this a lot and decided not to go medium format. I was really excited by the new GFX 100S, but I decided not to get it kind of largely for that reason, that like it's very, very good and it's very, very high performance, but it's only very high performance if you actually like take the perfect picture. So yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed it.